Hello, I am Felipe Toledo,
And I am Trey Woodlove.
and this is our work on specifying and monitoring safe driving properties with SceneGraph.
Autonomous vehicles are reaching large-scale deployment in major population centers. Yet these vehicles continue to exhibit behaviors that do not follow safe driving practices and have led to collisions and fatalities. While verification and validation aim to increase safety, runtime monitoring is needed to limit failures in the field.
However, current runtime monitors are limited in several dimensions. They don't account for spatial temporal data required to reason about AV behaviors. They have relied on manually instrumented methods to derive necessary information, and they have focused on simple specifications that don't capture the full system behavior. To solve these issues, our framework leverages scene graphs to provide the first domain cognizant monitor that can work with any AV system and can handle complex AV safe driving specifications.
Scene graphs encode information about entities and their spatial and semantic relationships. Consider the scene graph for this example. We identify the ego vehicle's lane and the adjacent lane. This lane's traffic opposes ego's, which is noted by the relationship opposes between the two lanes. Finally, we identify another car which is in the opposing lane and is near and to the left of the ego vehicle. This process yields a semantic abstraction of the scene over which we can reason about complex specification properties.
Our framework, SGSM, has two phases: an offline part where a domain expert defines driving specifications, and then a developer assisted by our domain-specific language, SGL, formalizes them using an LTLF specification which is automatically compiled into a DFA. In the online phase, SGSM provides a runtime monitor that takes in the generated SGL function, sensor data from the ego vehicle, and checks for property violations. Internally, the monitor uses the sensed data to create a scene graph used to evaluate the predicates of the SGL function, which then are used to update our monitor's DFA and output whether the property holds or is violated.
We investigated the Virginia driving code and identified 6 laws from which we derived 9 high-level specifications to showcase our approach's ability to handle complex safe driving properties. We then converted these into formal temporal logic specifications over scene graph propositions. These propositions are encoded in our scene graph language. The SGL expression and temporal logic formula can then be checked during runtime. We evaluated 3 state-of-the-art AV systems from the Carla Leaderboard Challenge and examined their ability to meet 15 parameterizations of the specifications over 10 tests. We found that on average, the AVs violated 71% of the properties during at least one test. Let's now examine one property violation that we found.
The AV TCP violated property 9, which states that once the ego vehicle detects a new stop signal controlling its lane, it must stop before passing the stop signal. This property is encoded using the temporal logic specification shown below. In the upper left, we see the camera image from TCP's sensor. Upper right shows the scene graph used to evaluate the propositions to run the DFA in the lower right. The DFA started in state 2 and transitioning to state 3 after the stop line is found. Finally, after the ego vehicle has passed sufficiently into the intersection, the DFA enters the violation state since the ego vehicle never stopped. The AV interfuser violated property 6, which states that if the ego vehicle is moving and there is no entity in the same lane as the ego vehicle within 7 meters, and there is no red traffic light or stop sign controlling the ego vehicle's lane, then the ego vehicle should not stop. This property is encoded using the temporal logic specification shown below, and informally this specification can be thought of as saying do not stop in the middle of the road without reason. In the upper left, we see the camera image from interfuser's sensor. Upper right shows the scene graph used to evaluate the propositions to run the DFA in the lower right. The DFA was in state 2 because the ego vehicle was moving, and then transitioned to the violation state when the ego vehicle stopped and there was no car, no stop signs, and no red traffic lights. The AV lab violated property 7, which states that if the ego vehicle is not in a junction, then ego vehicle cannot be in more than one lane for more than 15 seconds. This property is encoded using the temporal logic specification shown below, and note that the special syntax in the SGL function for unrolling bounded temporal properties. In the upper left, we see the camera image from lab's sensor. upper right shows the scene graph used to evaluate the propositions to run the DFA in the lower right. The DFA started in state 1 as the EO vehicle was only in one lane. Once the EO vehicle was in 2 lanes, it moved to state 2 and kept moving throughout the states, which counts the duration of being in 2 lanes until it reaches the violation state after being in 2 lanes for more than 15 seconds.
Runtime monitors are needed to ensure that autonomous vehicles are safe to be deployed with respect to their specification.
Scene graphs are very useful to abstract relevant data captured from the sensors and enable property specifications over them.
Our framework, SGSM, allows the user to specify and monitor a wide variety of real driving properties using scene graphs.